Welcome into the studio. I've gotten back from my 3-day trip into the wilderness. Ha ha. And what we're going to do today is go over the gear I ended up taking, whether that gear worked, what I will not be taking next time. We're going to do what Paul used to call an AAR, or an after action report, or an after action review, or pick a acronym for going over the stuff, debriefing what worked, what didn't work. So let's get into it. First, I've laid out most of the gear I ended up taking for this trip. And as I go through it, or start to go through it, I'll tell you that I've done a little bit of research, talking to a lot of people that go out, do day hikes, go hunting for a day, etc., etc. And most of them do not take anywhere near this stuff, whether they're mushroom hunting, deer hunting for the day, it doesn't matter. They take just what they need, and really and honestly, they would survive in the utmost emergencies, but they wouldn't be very comfortable. And to be honest with you, it would depend on all kinds of things, like how much rain's coming down in this country. So what I took was this double bit hatchet. Way too big because I took a big knife instead. But anyway, I took this. It worked well. It's a council tool. Worked well, did everything it was supposed to. But for a day hike, it's a lot of weight. I took an extra straight blade knife. Took my K-bar that I've had for 40 some years. More as a good luck piece than anything else. I did use it once, but I didn't have any problem with the big knife I took either. Compass, definitely would take that again. On a day hike, I'm not taking extra batteries again, so put those away. And it'll become obvious as we go through why. Probably not going to take the big hatchet again. Again, worked well like it was supposed to. It's just too much for a day hike. Might take an extra fixed blade or my good luck piece. Compass for sure. Whatever handgun you decide. And what I've learned from most guys is they're taking, most of the time, they're 9mm, like a magazine with it, depending on the magazine capacity. And it's their EDC, something very similar to what I have here. I happen to have a 15-round magazine in it now. So they might just take that on their hip for their day. They think that gives them enough rounds if they need to signal and to do whatever they needed to do out in the woods. My cup with the stove stand and the stove, used it a ton. Super lightweight. Lid works great. Stove worked great. Definitely would put this in there for me, and it has a little bag for storage. The fuel canister, a small one, goes in this also. I like stopping in the middle of my day, whether you want to have your sandwich for lunch, or for me, just a cup of coffee or something. Warms you up, gives you a minute to stop, think, recover. So definitely going to put something like that in my day pack that I take with me. I took emergency fishing gear. I know there's a pond up there, so I thought I'd try it. To be honest with you, I've never had much luck at emergency fishing gear. The pond was frozen over, so that says it all. And for a day hike, again, unless I knew I was going to walk into a place and actually go there to fish, and in that case, I'd take a super small fishing pole and not something like this. So a little bit of weight, but the more you shave off, the better you are, and space. So not going to take emergency fishing gear again. I took a light. I showed this in the video. You can signal with it, do all kinds of stuff. This one happens to be rechargeable. And I had that little recharger thing. And of course, I took a headlamp. So between the two, and over the most of 3 days I was out there, I did not go through any batteries in my headlamp. So to think I would need extra batteries, probably not, especially on a day hike, right? Test your equipment before you go. Make sure you put fresh batteries in it, whatever. I got Gorilla Tape here and plastic electrical tape. I'm probably going to switch out for some other type of tape. I used a lot of the tape to help build the shelter. But in the cold, this electrical tape becomes bitter. It doesn't want to stick quite as well. Somebody told me about what's called gaffer's tape. It's for taping up electrical stuff on stages, etc. It's not a true duct tape, but it's similar to that. It's like a cloth duct tape. I'll be looking into that. Make different widths of it. Good stuff. But I would hardly encourage you to take some sort of tape with you. Pick the firearm you want. If you don't want to pick a firearm, don't take one. But again, like I said, most people carry their own. I took a lot of fire starting stuff. I've gone through most of it. I've got fire plugs in this, my fire tube, 2 more of these Lightum gel type heat tabs / fire starters, cotton balls, waterproof matches, storm matches, and a lighter. I also carried a Zippo in my pocket. I'm probably not going to repack much of this. I will put one more of the start pull fire things in here. I'm going to take out the ferro rod in exchange for a couple Bic lighters. And not because they spark also, but they give you a flame. And the odds, especially in a day a day operation of all your lighters going bad, pretty remote. And that ferro rod gets really heavy. Now for extended times, and I'm not saying ferro rods are bad, folks. They're just not for me for a day type hike. But definitely fire starting stuff, and definitely stuff that you know and trust and it's proven. I got my personal first aid kit, little finger splints, bee sting type. Takes the sting and the bite out of stings and bites. Personal meds. If you take medication, I'd suggest you put that in your pack also, just in case you get stuck out. If it's critical medication you take daily, you want that in there. So make sure to put some in there. It's very important. I've been on searches before. Elderly people, other people my age with diabetes, etc., they get lost. They don't have the meds. That interferes with their ability to think. So take meds if you are a person that needs to daily. Pack some in there. This is the rat's nest you should have seen in the video. I would replace this other than it glows in the dark. It reflects. It doesn't glow. It reflects. Lighter weight bank type line, I might put in instead of 550 cord or as much 550 cord. You can take up a lot less space, a little bit less weight. It's not as strong, but when you're tying up nothing but the tops to teepees and ridge poles and stuff, you don't need it to hold 550-pound tensile strength like true 550 cord. Especially, again, in your day pack. You're not, and I guess if you really needed that emergency fishing stuff or some kind of emergency twine, I got 7 strands in the 550 cord. This has 1 or 2. I would really test and look into if you think you're going to use the strands that are in this kind of cord as emergency stuff. Okay, this is low end. I won't say where I got it, but it's low end. It's not worth the cordage in here that says it's wax, jute, or whatever to actually try to start a fire. I talked about that when I was out in the field also. Big knife, pick one that ever works for you. I personally like a bigger knife. If you're not going to go with a bigger knife, you're going to go with more the standard size hunting knife, then I would definitely carry a hatchet. I also have the Leatherman tool in here. I highly recommend, whether it's in your pockets or your gear, whatever, you always have a Leatherman tool. Let me rephrase. And we're not sponsored by anybody, remember that. I like Leatherman, but a multi-tool, you pick the brand. Pack clothes for the weather. My beanie worked nice, fell off my head a little bit, but it worked really nice. Wool gloves, when nighttime came and I was sitting there and I was in the bag, I put on the wool gloves instead of the flight gloves I had to work with. So very good there. I had a wool wool scarf. It's just an old military issue wool scarf. That would help. Didn't end up needing it because I was able to pull the collar up and so on. And the neck gaiter thing, again, I didn't need this particular one, but for the space and the weight, it's worth always having with you. I had hidden under my coat my last ditch effort, North American Arms 22 Magnum in a belt holster. I don't know why, but I did. So, if you thought you wanted to carry something very small that at least gives you something to hide away, there's a lot of those type of things out there. We talked about that. Personally, I'm going to recommend, and I'm going to keep doing, of carrying a firearm of some type, whether concealed or not, with me all the time. I took electronic earplugs in case I did some shooting, and just regular old-fashioned earplugs. Very lightweight. These are a little bit heavier. For a day pack, unless I'm going to put them on my hat or something, I'm not going to do the electronic ones, especially if I'm not intending to do a lot of shooting. If I'm going out there to do a ton of shooting or whatever, like maybe jackrabbit hunting or something, then I might want the electronic ones. They're a little more comfortable, a lot easier to get on and off. But for just the day pack and going out just for becauses, I'm going to leave those at home. We'll always have some ear protection with me though. This is a new version of the tube tent. Tube tent worked great. I ended up splitting mine, making a big tarp out of it. I think that works better for you versus the tube tent itself. Might end up doing that with this. This is a heavy duty version. Got it off of Amazon. I got a new Mylar sleeping bag, not an extra large one. I think for the size and the weight of them, they weigh a little bit, but for the size of them, they'll go in any day pack. They give you that reassurance. I'm going to continue to carry these as the last ditch emergency shelter, lost overnight type thing. And when I say that, we got to remember the premise of this whole thing was not end of the world survival. It was not any kind of that type of situation. It wasn't the world is ended, or I don't know, pick a scenario where I have to go forage off the land. It was simply, I went out for a day, pick an activity, and got stuck overnight, and in my case, 2 nights. And I needed to just stay warm, stay hydrated, and wait for somebody to come find me because I told people where I was going and so on. I ran out of water, and I did have a filtration system with me, which worked really well. A lot of people I talk to, they take minimal water, like a quart, and then they take a life straw or some other filtration system to save weight. That's a good idea. I'm going to continue carrying the water filtration system with me. In my case, it's a Sawyer. So I'm going to continue that. I'm going to continue to take toilet paper, of course, with some made for your rear end wipes. You pick the brand name, but you can get them at the small travel sections at almost any variety store. And they sell some specially for outdoors people. And continue to take some snacks, always. I had a sewing kit. It's small enough, light enough. I've used sewing kits when you rip your clothes and other things. So for the space and so on, I'm going to continue to carry a sewing kit in my day pack. I'm going to pare down because I didn't use one of these special towel things. These are a little bit bigger, different brands, but I didn't use one of them in the 3 days I was out there. So I think I'm going to carry like 3 of the smaller ones, maybe this, because this green one makes pretty big. I know it's lightweight, but they are a little bit of space, a little bit of weight, and again, ounces end up being pounds. So they're very handy if you run out of special rear end wipe. You can get them wet. They do the job. They're very handy if you're out hunting or digging mushrooms or things like that. Clean your hands off. So there is a purpose for them. I just didn't need the 5 or 6 or 8 that I end up taking with me. So again, I'm going to pare that down. I took 2 full 30 or 15 round magazines to go with the one in the gun and the one on the pouch, so a total of 4. For a day hike, seems like quite a bit extra. Probably not going to do that. 1 magazine, 1 spare in case that magazine fails for whatever reason. That still gives you 30 rounds versus 60 and saves me a lot of weight in the 10 millimeter caliber. Now, if it's 22, 25, 32, 38, you can choose where you're going to draw that line as to what is too much or way overkill. But again, you have to evaluate what you think you're going to get into. I did take my 12 gauge with the light on it just because I thought I needed a long gun. Obviously, I ended up not needing a long gun. But I also took 6 rounds of number 6 birdshot and a total of 10 rounds of double-aught buckshot. Because if you're going to have the shotgun, you might as well have ammo that's going to be effective for it. I took the tourniquet, the 2 tourniquets, the trauma kit. Again, I've talked to a few folks. They take maybe a tourniquet, a little bit of blood stop stuff, but they're not even taking a trauma kit as big as this one. That kind of surprised me with it being all the rage to carry an IFAK. Guys out there where you could easily slip and fall and shove a stick into your femoral or major bleed yourself or anything, slip and cut yourself with your knife. They're not carrying but the truly, truly emergency minimal to take care of something like that. I'm going to continue carrying the full-size one. Feel a little bit better about it. The older I get, the more unstable I get on my feet. So that's my choice. I'm going to do it. I'm going to continue to carry trail surveyor tape. You pick the color and style. And the 550 cord in here. I'm going to forgo this 550 cord for some bank line. Probably not this much for my shelter. So I'm not going to carry both of these, especially on just a day hike. I took the military poncho, and what I found out is these, great piece of equipment. They're a little outdated, but great piece of equipment. But I can carry a Gore-Tex raincoat, 3/4 length, lightweight, just jacket, just a rain jacket with a hood for the weight and the space that this is. When I laid this out as a ground cloth, it was like laying on ice. I was shocked at how cold this poncho was. So I'm not going to carry a poncho anymore, especially when I've got the lighter weight, covers so much more tube tent that you can make into at least an 8x10 tarp. So for the weight and space, there's better products nowadays. I am going to keep carrying my inflatable pillow. Spent most of the night sitting on this. When I did get a chance to sleep, great piece of equipment for the weight and space, just because, and especially even during the day when you sit down to have your coffee, you don't want to get your rear end wet, the stump's not, whatever it is. Having a little bit of comfort with you is not always a bad idea. Extra bag, the bivy bag and stuff I took with me are long gone. Candles. I played with these, tested them out, haven't done it in a long time, got the same results I did 20 years ago or more, and that is, with modern stuff, they're not worth the weight. They're not worth the light. They're not worth the risk of melting your stuff, setting your stuff on fire, having an open flame in your shelter. I understand maybe in snow tents they give you more warmth. I think there's other things out there that probably for the weight and space and ease would give you that much warmth also. So I'm not going to keep carrying candles. I wasn't before, but I took them on this trip just to practice with them again. This is the bag from the other bivy bag. Keep it, but not just carry it as a spare. I did take these 6 lightweight tent pegs, and these are pretty nice. They have a reflective piece of cord on them. They have a hook on them. Hold them up here. They're titanium, so they're lightweight. I think if you actually want to take shelter building, keep in mind they're a lot quicker than building or making your own stakes, especially if you're out there in the dark, you're starting to panic. A lot easier. Whoop, wrong box. Should have stayed up here. Coffee, can't get away with that. Always going to have some with me. Extra triangular bandage, I got 2 or 3. A meat stick thing. A pencil, a notepad. Definitely going to keep. Oh, had the battery die because I guess I talk a lot. So, get back to what I started to pick up is this electric rechargeable lighter. Maybe I'll keep this in here instead of a Bic one, or instead of 2 or 3 Bic ones. What I like about this is it has this snorkel tube on it, and if you've ever used a Bic lighter, you're trying to do this to light your fire, that flame burns up. It's difficult. It's kind of a pain in the rump. Yes, you can hold your tinder or whatever up here instead. This one, you probably can't see it on camera. It'll arc, especially if you wanted to light your tinder, your fire starter stuff. You can get it down in the fire underneath a little bit. A little more convenient. And then sorry about saying, I'm going to catch myself. And then it's got a little flashlight on it also. So a nice little piece of kit. Probably leave it in my day pack. It's a good place for it. So what went right? Most of the gear I took with me worked. In fact, all my gear worked. It could have been a little more convenient, but it all worked just like it was supposed to. Invest the money the best you can in your gear. Don't forget that lesson. My clothing, excellent, worked great, did just as I expected it to do. It's always nice to know your equipment's going to not let you down, not fall apart on you, etc. My Camelback, here's the hose to it. My Camelback worked. What I found again was, and the reason I went away from them, to be honest with you, is that they're a pain in the rump to get water into your cup. You've got to elevate it, gravity feed, all those things. They're not super convenient versus a water bottle just to pour water in there. Overall, for the amount of water, and yes, I misspoke in one of the videos, it's a 3 liter, okay, 3 liter, or 100 milliliter bag. So, sorry about that. Anyway, the bag itself in the system is lighter than probably your 3 lightweight 1 liter bottles. Those give me more options though. You can get them into a creek easier, filter the water later. You can pour into your cup. They're more maneuverable. I like them the same reason I like the military type canteens. You can put the cup on the bottom of them. You don't need a separate cup space taking up space. I just like that system a little bit better. What didn't work? What didn't work was getting in a hurry and taking some shortcuts. So instead of building my tripod, tying the top together, I leaned it up against some bushes to make my teepee. Or against a big branch, anyway, to make my teepee. And it leaned over, pulled the tarp, so to speak, off the ground, created a draft. I froze. Didn't work well. That's on me because I didn't take the time to do it right. Same thing with my bed night one. I didn't level the ground out. Therefore, slick mylar, constantly falling down, and it wasn't a slope, just a slope. Constantly moving, slipping, sliding. Take the time, if you're in that situation, to do it right if you have any opportunity to do it right. I did. I chose not to. I paid the price for it. Lesson learned. The Camelback could have worked better, so I'll change that up a little bit. My Zippo didn't run out of fluid in those days. I didn't take a saw. I thought I wouldn't need a saw. I would probably take, and I'm still deciding, whether or not take a small hatchet and a saw and a smaller knife, or just the bigger knife to cut quickly little branches, etc., and a saw for gathering bigger firewood. I know, speaking of didn't work stuff, I know that if you split wood, no matter how small it is, the flat of the inside gives you a better burning surface. I didn't do that because I falsely and wrongly thought that the stuff up off the ground and the dryness or lack of rain we've had here, the stuff was dry. It appeared dry. If you've looked at my video on Instagram or Facebook, you'll know it wasn't dry. It wasn't dry in the middle. So if I'd taken the time to split that wood, maybe it would have been burned. It would have burned better for me. Maybe it would have given me more heat, and I wouldn't have ended up sitting up all night feeding small stuff, gathering it up in the dark. Another thing I didn't do right. I didn't gather enough wood. I thought I had. I thought the big stuff would burn. I was wrong. So I sat up all night, gathering wood, gathering stuff all through the night with my headlamp, sitting next to the fire, keeping it going. Another thing I did wrong in that case, wrong, shouldn't have done, pick a word, was I gave myself smoke inhalation sitting next to the fire and where it was compared to where my shelter, blah, blah, blah. I had a screaming headache the next day, and until for like 12, 14 hours till I could stay away from fire, stay away from smoke, get enough oxygen through my body and so on, that I got that smoke inhalation out of my system, that CO2, and I felt better. Keep that in mind. We don't want to asphyxiate ourselves, which means you shouldn't put fires inside of shelters. What am I going to keep doing? I'm going to keep taking a pack with me, bottom line. I'm going to keep taking water with me, as much as I can stand to carry, because I sweat a lot and I need more water than most people. I'm going to take some comfort things, i.e. the coffee, my stove, clothing, okay, snacks. I'm going to keep doing those things. What am I not going to do for my day hike type stuff? I'm not going to carry redundant stuff. I'm not going to carry, just because I think I might be the end of the world while I'm out there, 60 rounds of heavy ammo for one gun and 20 or 30 for another gun. Forgot to mention Pop-Tarts for those that said they hadn't seen them yet. And yes, it's a Pop-Tarts box throwback pack. So it is a retro Pop-Tarts box, folks. For most of the time, I'm going to keep using my civilian pack. This is more comfortable than the military gear. With the chest holster, I can get to the gun. I don't have to worry about it on my belt and so on. I'm going to keep using that. I've got a little bit bigger pack coming for this frame. So I'm going to get rid of this because I don't like how it flops open and stuff. I don't like the system of this particular bag. So I'm just going to get a bigger main bag to put this stuff in. This fancy radio worked just like it's supposed to. Super convenient to put on the ridgepole of my shelter with this fancy carabiner. Just put it around the ridgepole. Wake up in the middle of the night and just open it up for light. If you plan on camping, take one of these with you. I am not going to carry this, though, for my day pack stuff where I don't plan on spending the night. All I need for that is to survive the night. I'm going to have my headlamp. I don't need 3 light sources with me. I don't need a flashlight and a headlamp and a floodlight. The radio was nice. I tested it out. I listened to the Weather Channel when I was sitting up all night. It was comforting. My stuff didn't go dead, so my phone didn't go dead. Other rechargeable things weren't going to go dead in those 24 hours. So the ability to recharge them from this is a moot point. Hopefully you folks have gotten something out of my little experiment here. A couple things went wrong, a couple things went right. I'm going to keep doing a lot of things. I'm going to stop doing some things. What am I going to keep doing right as a wrap up? Taking stuff with me, the right stuff, and stuff I know how to use. What am I not going to keep doing? I'm not going to take stuff I don't know how to use and is quadruple redundant because it's just silly. And the last thing I'm going to keep doing, and I hadn't done this in a long time, even though I preach it, is go out, buy the best equipment you can with the money you have. Take that equipment, whether it's into your backyard or a park, it doesn't matter. Test it. Break it out of its packaging so you know how to use it. Be familiar with it so you're always the best prepared in the worst case situations.